Mitsuki continues to question his own existence and if he actually has free will, and Old Man Ohnoki comes to town to impart some wisdom on the young ninja of Konoha Village. Hello my friends and welcome to another anime review of Boruto, Naruto Next Generations. Before we begin, it is time for a shameless plug. I don't do this too often, but I just released a huge video. A video all on Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's a brand new video game coming out for the Nintendo Switch, and I am really hyped for it. So hyped that I produced a video which is all about my top 5 favorite newcomers that could potentially come to the game. And I worked really hard on this video. I put a lot of production value into it when compared to my standard reviews, so I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check that out, give me your thoughts on it, like it, and share it with all of your friends. There will be a link for that video in the description box below and at the very end of this video, so make sure to check it out or I will hunt you down. But enough shenanigans, let's talk about this episode of Boruto, Naruto Next Generations. An episode which, to be perfectly honest with you guys, I was not looking forward to. I thought it was just going to be a one-note joke kind of episode. They were bringing back Ohnoki, the famous fence sitter. And my first thought is, wow, Ohnoki's alive. How the fuck is that possible? I mean, really consider it. Ohnoki in the original series was already an old man having severe back problems and even already had the nickname of the fence sitter. This guy was over the hill. There's no way that this guy should be alive, and he's basically over 100 at this point. The dude can barely walk anymore. He even has this like weird futuristic wheelchair that we see in this episode. But like I said, I thought this entire episode was just going to be a continuation of that long gag. He's old. He's about to die. He's got bad back problems. But believe it or not, this is probably the best episode featuring that character. Maybe not in terms of action, but as far as actually developing him, I thought it was really intriguing, and it went along with this entire plot, which is actually the beginning of the Mitsuki arc of the series. They start sort of planting the seeds for that in this episode, and it ultimately comes to fruition at the very end of this episode. Mitsuki is questioning his existence, his free will. Is it something that he chooses himself, or something that he's made to believe? This is highlighted in a number of different ways in this episode, such as this one throwaway scene at the very beginning, where Boruto's hanging out with all of his friends at that burger restaurant, which seems to be the only place that they ever eat at, by the way. They need to be careful. They're gonna clog the fuck out of their ninja arteries. But what's funny about this scene is that when Inojin and Shikadai come in, Inojin has this like weird little baby chick on his shoulder. Just a chicken, just hanging out with him, and that's because apparently they were going on this mission looking after this farm, and Inojin found this egg, which just so happened to hatch directly in his hands, and whenever a baby chick sees something for the very first time, they imprint it as their parent. So basically, Inojin just became a daddy. But what's really interesting about this scene is how it parallels with Mitsuki, who again might have been imprinted as well, when he was sort of reborn after deciding to choose his very own free will. This is highlighted in the flashback sequence where he was going up against Log and Orochimaru, and here he starts to realize, do I like Boruto because I think he's a genuinely interesting person? Or have I just been programmed to actually believe that? And throughout most of the episode, he sort of has to confront himself and realize, is he just a robot, or is he doing this of his very own volition? So the main plot of this episode really is that they're having a Kage summit. All of the Kage have come to town. We even get to see the previous ones like freaking Mei, the original Raikage, and even Kakashi. And they're trying to discuss what's going on with this whole Otsutsuki thing. And they even know that Urashiki is still out there. They're trying to devise a plan. All of the young Kage are absolutely freaking out, and all the old experienced ones are basically telling them, chill the hell out, we'll figure this thing out. Since you're the leaders of these villages, you have to have some cool composure. But Ohnoki decides he does not want to be a part of this mission, and he's sort of just aimlessly making his way around Konoha Village. That's where Boruto and his team come in, where they decide to actually try and find him, and in a matter of minutes, they instantly find this guy. Or really, Ohnoki ends up finding them. And this leads to Boruto and his team basically taking Ohnoki around Konoha Village, going to restaurants, hanging out, and just doing fun, leisurely things. Ohnoki doesn't want to go to a boring old meeting. He wants to hang out in Konoha Village. Now, the reason that Boruto has actually decided to go along with this plan is because his father Naruto has actually given him something of a riddle. He asks him, what's the hardest rock in the world? And it's not just a simple answer of just saying this type of rock is actually the hardest, it's actually a metaphor. And it's pretty obvious what it is, and of course, since Ohnoki is in town, Boruto believes that if anybody knows about stones and rocks, it's gotta be the previous Tsuchikage himself. But no, it's actually something a little bit more, and yes, by the end, we do get the reveal that it's basically your very own free will, the bedrock that exists within your soul and within your heart. It's a cheesy message, but honestly, it does make sense, and I had a feeling it was going to be something metaphorical like that. But I think one of the things I found most fascinating about this episode was this one moment where they actually dive into Ohnoki's past just a little bit. There's a scene where Boruto, Ohnoki, and his group are actually walking through this construction site, and this giant steel beam is actually about to fall on someone. And Ohnoki is actually the very first one to react, jumping up out of his wheelchair and using his signature particle style to actually destroy this thing. But, of course, since he uses too much power, he ends up getting knocked out, and when Boruto is waking him up, Ohnoki doesn't see Boruto, he sees a vision of his grandson, who goes by the name of Kazuchi. Now, they've never really gotten into this before, and according to Ohnoki, unfortunately, his grandson passed away when he was younger, about the same age as Boruto and all of his friends, and then they never bring it up again. There's a reason why they included that scene, and I'm sure it's going to have some pretty big importance later on. Could Kazuchi still be alive? Is there a reason to even introduce that character aside from making us feel sympathy for Ohnoki? Something about that scene really caught my attention, and the fact that they actually went into Ohnoki's past like that is interesting, because they've never actually done that before. So, the episode pretty much ends with Ohnoki imparting some wisdom to Boruto and his friends, letting them know that the strongest rock is the will within your heart, and only you can make that possible. Mitsuki is still a little confused by all of this, wondering if his will is actually his own or not, and even Ohnoki says he doesn't quite have the answer to that. It's really something that he's going to have to figure out on his own. But the episode ends very ominously, with Mitsuki returning to his room and realizing that someone's actually been in there. Someone left a note on his bed, a note that we never get to see, and something that he ends up burning. I'm not sure if this letter was from Orochimaru, another assailant. I even possibly believed it could be from Urashiki himself. There's a little bit of evidence in the room, like that there's some sand on the floor, and I'm not sure what that actually means. But wow, I am completely intrigued by this plot right now to see exactly where it's going to be going. And by the very end of the episode, as the Kage Summon is coming to a close, we go to the outside of Konoha Village, where there are these two guards who are hanging out when suddenly they're attacked by a mysterious assailant who seems to be using some sort of lightning-styled attack. The episode pretty much ends right there, beginning the Mitsuki arc of the series. And considering that this is going to be a wholly original arc for the anime series, I have no idea where it's going, and I'm so excited to see what's going to happen. There's nothing more fun than watching a show and not knowing what's going to happen, and it always surprises you, and that's been one of my favorite things about the Boruto anime series so far. 90% of its content has been completely original for the series, and honestly, I think it's fully worked to its benefit. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Boruto in many ways has been way more entertaining than the previous iterations of Naruto, which, in my opinion, are still modern anime classics, but weren't perfect by any stretch of the means. But something about this show just continues to really impress me. But let's talk about that a little bit more in the rundown of this episode of Boruto Naruto Next Generations. Like I said, I was really surprised by this episode. Bringing back Ohnoki was pretty freaking awesome. He was always one of my favorite characters from Naruto Shippuden, and he was only introduced more towards the end of the series, and I was really hoping that we would get to learn a little bit more about him, his past, and his village. And the fact that they brought up the concept of his dead grandson is just, I don't know. There's something about that. There's a reason why they included that scene, not just to make us feel sympathy for his character and to humanize him just a little bit more. I promise there is going to be some importance to that later on, and it might even have something to do with the current Mitsuki arc that's going on right now, or they could just be planting the seeds for something even crazier later down the line. I'm very excited for that prospect of the series, or it could completely go nowhere, and it's just there to, again, like I said, make you feel sympathy for the old man. For the most part, Ohnoki is exactly the character that he was before, except now he seems to be slightly more laid back, and a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that the world has changed, and he has been influenced greatly by Naruto. The entire lesson of the episode, which is the strongest rock in the world is your very own will, it seems exactly like the type of thing that you would see in the Naruto series. It feels right at home. It's that type of metaphorical dime store symbolism that the series is certainly known for, but I think it really worked in this episode right here. I really loved a lot of the elements of this one. Not a super action-packed episode by any stretch of the means, but I do love that Ohnoki is still able to sporadically at least use his power. Those particle-styled abilities are unique only to him, so you don't really get to see them all that often, but it shows how incredibly powerful he still is. I also got a lot of enjoyment of watching Raikage, Mei, and freaking Kakashi just sort of casually hang out while the other Kage are freaking out about this whole Otsutsuki thing. I don't know why, but that scene just really put a big smile on my face. And so did this entire episode. This is one of those episodes that I think some people are going to dismiss, but for me personally, as a fan of the series and where this whole Mitsuki arc is going to be headed, I'm super pumped for this one. So I'm giving this episode a 5 out of 5. That's right, I got a lot of enjoyment out of this one. From a technical standpoint, it was a pretty good looking episode. I'm always a sucker for scenes that are done during like sunset, and the Boruto series does it a lot, and it looks beautiful when it does it. I just love every scene that's like that. The final scene of watching Mitsuki burn that letter and the lighting effect of the fire particles like going up in the room and all the darkness and everything, just I loved that visually speaking. This was a great episode, but I'd love to get all of your thoughts on it. If any of you guys did watch this episode of Boruto, tell me what you thought about it in the comments section below and what you hope to see from this brand new Mitsuki arc. Let's get a discussion going, guys. And again, make sure to check out my top 5 most wanted newcomers for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate video. Again, link in the description box at the end of this video. Please check it out, share it with all your friends. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.